And we thank you all for tuning in, whether on Crowdcast or our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. In these strange times, we're thrilled to be able to present virtual editions of our programming and use live streaming to create a kind of digital stage that can serve Town Hall's community of curious and engaged Seattleites, folks from well beyond Seattle. Like anyone who's willing to stare or talk into their computers right now, some of whom are doing it for the first time, I want to thank Eric for joining us tonight and helping us keep the conversation aloft at Town Hall. To view a closed caption version of tonight's program, please watch from our YouTube page, and closed captioning will be available there afterwards as well. Upcoming events at Town Hall will include tomorrow's appearance by Joe Cirincione on the future of U.S. nuclear policy, Richard Cordray on the founding of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and its path forward, Dar Jamail bearing witness to the end of ice in Antarctica, the next Civic Saturday, which is kind of a secular ceremony of community hosted by Eric Liu and Janae Kane, and another installment of our Earshot Jazz Live at the Forum series this week featuring the Kate Olson Ensemble. Know that we're adding new programs every day, as well as new events being released as podcasts. And many of our past talks are available in video or podcast form on our digital media library. In short, spend some time noodling around our media tab on the homepage. And over the coming weeks, Town Hall will continue to provide not only ways to stay plugged in the present, but plenty more rabbit holes for you to climb down from our past. Tonight's conversation, or not a conversation, but Eric's presentation tonight, I should say, will last about 40 minutes. Afterwards, he'll take your questions. He will select questions from the questions that you type in the center of the pane at the bottom. It says "Ask a Question" on the Crowdcast platform, and Eric will be able to see them there. And also, you can vote on which questions he can answer first by clicking the arrow next to it, and it will upvote it and sort of resequence it for him to see. We cannot guarantee that he'll be able to address every question, but he'll try to get to as many as possible. And with that in mind, please keep it succinct and in the form of a question, we like to say. Town Hall's work is made possible through your support and the support of our sponsors. Arts and Culture in particular is supported by For Culture, the Arts Fund, Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture, and the Wincote Foundation Northwest. But as many of you know, Town Hall is truly supported by its members. And I want to thank all of you in our membership who may be watching tonight. Finally, everything you've heard is true. Town Hall and the nonprofit community at large are under significant strain right now. We hope you will consider making a gift during this difficult time by pressing the donation button at the bottom of your screen or by becoming a member. You can also make a donation online or by texting Town Hall to the number 44321, and it will open up a little screen for you to make your gift. Extending that, finally, I'm realizing our partner booksellers have also been hit hard by the negative effects of the COVID outbreak, and they could use your support as well. If you're interested in supporting local independent bookstores and of deepening your understanding of tonight's topic and picking up a copy of Here For It, please use the link on this live stream page to purchase through the Elliott Bay Book Company. All right. R. Eric Thomas is a playwright, a columnist, and a congenial host. Let me tell you more. As a playwright, his work has been seen on stages around the country. From his base in Philadelphia, he's collaborated with many of the region's finest companies like Arden Theater, Interact, and Baltimore Center Stage. And he's won a Barrymore Award and the Dramatist Guild Lanford Wilson Award, and was a finalist for the Steinberg American Theater Critics New Play Award. As for the columnist and author part, Eric is a senior staff writer at Elle Online, where since 2016, he's written the daily humor column on pop culture and politics, Eric Reads the News. His writing has also appeared in the New York Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer, among other publications. And he is currently at work on a biography of Representative Maxine Waters, tentatively called Reclaiming Her Time. Finally, as to that congeniality, he is the long-running onstage host of the Moth Story Slams in both DC and Philadelphia. His book, Here For It, or How to Save Your Soul in America, is the subject of tonight's talk. Please join me in welcoming R. Eric Thomas.
Hello. I'm really delighted to be here. Welcome to Virtual Town Hall. Welcome also to my living room. Actually, this is a study. I'm already lying. I'm already lying about where I am and what's happening. This is an experimenting fraud. The last time I'm really glad that we're able to do this tonight. I was hoping to be there in person tonight. I really love Seattle. I have a lot of friends in Seattle. I love Seattle. The last time I was in Seattle at Town Hall, I was with the Moth. We were doing a main stage there, and they flew us out the day before. and sometimes I get like just terrible jet lag. You know, I'm special. And I was like really, really jet lagged, and I was up at 4 a.m. to do my East Coast job online, and then to do the moth. And by the time I got to Seattle, I was my brain had left the building. The show was at like 7 or whatever, 7:30 perhaps, and so it was like 10:30 in my brain, but also I hadn't slept, and I don't know what I said. I was like, they're going to drag me off of this stage. They're going to like arrest me and take me to Seattle jail, and where I will never escape. Like the gnome will sit on me, and that will be the thing. Is it the gnome? I don't know. See, the thing, one of the things I love about doing these online events is that like I'm literally just talking into a hutch in my room, so I have no idea. Whether you could be like, there's no gnome here, but I think there is. I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I'm really excited to get a second chance to redeem myself with Town Hall, and to remember where I am and what day it is and what organization is presenting me. I'm really excited to be here talking about my book, Here for It, or How to Save Your Soul in America, which you can see reversed just over my shoulder there. I'm going to be reading a couple of selections from the book tonight, and then you can feel free to ask questions. If you've read it or if you've not read it, you can ask questions about anything. I have an opinion about everything. You can ask for personal advice. I don't care. That sounds fine to me. I do want to also just sort of like not belabor, but acknowledge the strangeness of the medium. Every time I'm on a work call that's now put into Zoom. I've worked from home for a number of years, but now all of a sudden everybody wants to like see my face, and I find that very strange because one, I have to like put on clothes, which is distressing, and two, every meeting they're like, we're going to Zoom business meeting today or whatever, Zoom like editorial meeting, and it feels like they're saying we're going to come over to your house and sit on your couch. Like every time they're like, we're having a meeting, and I'm like, I haven't vacuumed. So I vacuumed. I put out there's a little throw rug there. As you can see there's a pineapple plant here, and there's a little, that's a gnat trap. I meant to take that out. So you can put on the blogs, and that R.R. Thomas is struggling with gnats. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of my book. One of the things, when I first started going on tour, the book came out in February of 2020. What am I talking about? February 18th of 2020. And I got to go on a couple tour dates. And I freaked out. I said to my editor, I was like, what do they want me to do in a book reading? And she was like, well, the clue is in the name. You should read the book. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't think people want that. So I'm going to read the book, and we'll experiment with that. This is if you haven't read it or you don't know it, most of the books don't have Post-it notes in them. But if you want a book with Post-it notes in it, I can send you one, I guess. But the book is a collection of essays. They're humorous essays about identity, about my identities as a Black person, as a gay person, as a Christian, and mostly as an American. And wrestling with the places where those identities come into contact with each other and conflict with each other, and sometimes come together to create something new. I have been in various times in my life in positions of otherness, where someone said to me or asserted that I was not the norm. And demographics aside, whether or not I'm in like a statistical minority, I realized at a certain point that I couldn't go through life thinking of myself always as marginalized. I exist in the center of my own story. And so I wanted to move myself from the margins to the center of my story. And so these are essays about that. They're essays about otherness and sameness and the places that we are all othered in our own lives. There are also stories about becoming, which is why the original title of this book was Becoming by Michelle Obama. And I presented it to my editor, and she said, you can't use that title. And I said, no, I know it's similar to another one by somebody else, but this is Becoming by Michelle Obama by R.R. Thomas. And so it's different. And she said, no, indeed. You're going to Seattle jail, and we're going to put the gnome on top of you. So instead, I called it Here for It. The original title was Why Bother? And I think about that a lot in this moment. because what I wanted to invoke was the question that we should always, I think we are always sort of under the surface or on the surface thinking about is, why should I bother to continue to be around? Why should I try to speak truth to power? Why should I try to change the political structure? Why should I try to even the scales for in situations that are unjust? Why bother? And I think it's a fair question. It's a fair question every day. Why do we get up every day and try to make the world a better place, or try to make a place for ourselves in the world? I did realize, though, that the title of Why Bother would be perhaps misconstrued as nihilist. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. This is the thing that happens. I thought I turned it. It is off. Anyway, I'm going to keep talking. I realized that the title of Why Bother, there it is, could be misconstrued as me being a little bit more pessimistic than I wanted. And so I decided to, instead of posing the question, to present a possible answer. And that is, this colloquial phrase, here for it. I'm here for it. I am prepared to accept and to navigate whatever life brings at me. I wrote this book before having to lock myself in my own home for the foreseeable future. So that's a question, but I'm here for that too. And one of the essays actually talks about a situation like this, and I didn't realize that it wasn't just me riffing. So I apologize for bringing that into the world, bringing that into the room. Anyway, so I'm going to read from an essay. The first selection I wanted to read for you was from an essay called Unsuccessful Black Hair. I am currently bald. I say currently because I am holding out for medical science. Yes, I have heard of Rogaine. No, I haven't tried it. I don't want my hair back. I want to take a pill and get John Legend's hair. I know you're thinking, have I been sleeping on John Legend's hair? Is it extraordinary? No, it's fine. It looks good all the time without being showy about it. I'm not asking for a crown of glory. I just want a nice, unremarkable, full head of hair that does its job competently and attractively, like the third lead on a crime procedural. Is that too much for modern science to give me? Other people seem to notice my baldness more than I do, which makes sense because I'm incredibly humble and never look in a mirror, but I'm always looking at Zoom and Crowdcast, so there we are. Anyway, this is before that. Anyway, never looked in the mirror. Also, I kind of just don't care. But it's still a surprise to me when little kids draw me as a round-faced, bald man. Are little kids drawing me a lot? Yes. I'm a kindergarten art model. It's a living. I look at these drawings and I see Gordon from Sesame Street or Steve Harvey, but never myself. I suppose I don't know what I look like. Or maybe I'm just waiting to memorize my look after I get my John Legend treatment. My hair, when I had hair, was no great shakes. I didn't really have a plan for my hair. I was too shy to try most fun hairstyles, and it felt like when it was cut normally, it didn't have any of the verve, sheen, or glow of other people's styles. I now realize that it's because I wasn't putting any product into it. Products with names like verve, sheen, and glow. I mean, it said it right there on the tub of metallic blue gel, but how was I supposed to know? Most of the time, I don't think about my hair, which in and of itself seems like a dereliction of my duty as a Black person. The original line here was, it seems like a hereliction of my duty as a Black person. And I put that in, and my editor was like, absolutely not. So, hair is integral to, integral. Oh my gosh, the other thing, I'm going to come back to the reading. Chaos. It's chaos already. There's so many words in this book that I use all the time that I never say out loud. And I did the audiobook reading, and I would just read what I thought the word was, and they would be like, that's not the word that you wrote. And I'd be like, well, one of us is the author, so this is how we pronounce it. But that's actually not the case. So anyway, I'll continue. Hair is integral to cultural Blackness. How we do our hair, what products are available to us, whether we let white people touch it, we don't. And the messaging we receive from non-Black people about our hair, it's all part of the experience. I know this. I'm sometimes affected by it, but I find it hard to internalize. I am proud to be Black, but I never been able to harness pride about my hair. I just don't really connect with it, or the lack thereof. Baldness is a legitimate black hair choice too. Why don't I just make Taye Diggs my hair idol and keep it moving? Do I look like Taye Diggs? No, but the tyranny of facts has never stood in my way before. One year, for Halloween, I dressed as Kanye West, sort of. I wore sunglasses and a sports coat because I am the laziest Halloween dresser known to man. Did my bald ass look like Kanye West? No. Somebody asked me if I was Lex Luthor. This is hilarious to me because this person was obviously costume colorblind and very woke. But still, let's not be ridiculous about this. You see my bald ass walking down the street on a Halloween wearing a suit. You don't think, hey, that's Lex Luthor. I can tell from the context clues. You also don't think, hey, that's Kanye West. More likely you think that guy is dressed as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Or most likely, why is that bald man going to a job interview at 8 p.m. on Halloween night? And why does the suit have shorts? The suit has shorts because I'm dressed up as sexy Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, also known as Lex Luthor Vandross. I love that little joke about Lex Luthor Vandross. I really do. And that's one of the things I wanted to do in this book was to write all the jokes that I have, period, full stop. They were like, why do you want to write a book? And I was like, I would like to tell more jokes, please. No, but what I wanted to do was to talk about serious subjects and subjects that can be serious in a way that felt, writing jokes about them felt like it defanged them sometimes, but it also gave me a power over them. If I'm able to make jokes, like this particular essay was like, you know, it's about like my struggles with hair, but also like sort of feeling not black enough. And the way that my sort of relationship with my hair contributed to me never feeling quite black enough. And so I was like, well, like, I can just go in and say, like, sometimes you go into a black barbershop and you feel like everybody is very macho and everybody has a connection to blackness that is unreachable to me. Or I can talk about Lex Luthor Vandross for a minute and you know, put like Mary Poppins says, a little spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That's the way I think about things. I am always going through life having experiences that are strange or awkward, or you know, and they can connect with theory, and that's really important. You know, I studied sociology in college a little bit. I don't know. I threw that out there. You know, I'm like, I've heard of sociology, but so like, yeah, there's theory. You know, I like half this bookshelf is books on theory, and half this bookshelf is flights of fancy. It's fiction. It's journeys to other places. And so I think that you can talk about large ideas in ways in both like the sort of nonfiction didactic way, and also in a way that like creates another world around it. So that sometimes that's through metaphor and simile, and sometimes or heightened realism, and sometimes that's literally through telling the story of your life, but deciding that the story of your life can be comedic. When I was headed to out on the beginning of my tour, I went to I'm here in Baltimore, and that's where I'm calling you from, and that's where I live. And so I went to a black barbershop to have my beard trimmed. I usually do it myself, but I was like, well, people are going to see you, so you should do it. You should like make it nice. And so I go to this barbershop, and like, I don't use it, you know, because I shave my own head and I do my own beard. I still never sort of like reconciled with some of the like ideas around like, oh, am I not black enough for a barbershop? Am I not man enough for a barbershop? This is sort of like these intersecting identities become like really troubled in these spaces sometimes. So I go to this barbershop, and it was very nice. Nobody was, there's one other person there. I sit down in the chair, cuts my hair, cuts my beard, and I pay him, and I getting up to leave. He takes the little cape bib off, and I'm like, oh, okay, this was a great experience. I've escaped. And the two bartenders in the background are sort of like joshing with each other. And I go to leave, and the one guy says like, hey, I got a question for you. And I was like, oh no, a black test. Ah! And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we're debating, what's your favorite kind of hot sauce? Which is the blackest question you can possibly ask somebody. And I was like, burger. And I don't typically use hot sauce. And so I was like, my brain was literally like, think of a hot sauce. Just think of any hot sauce. And I was like, maybe I should call my husband because he uses hot sauce, but my husband is white. So that felt problematic. So I was just like, Frank's? And the guy was like, haha, told you. And he's like, this dude, he likes crystals. And I was like, we have a common enemy now. I was like, oh, crystals? What a ridiculous kind of hot sauce. And I ran out of there. So I tell you that story to reveal to you that I am a moron. I'm going to read you this. I tell you that story to lead into this story, which deals a little bit with hot sauce, but also with like the different kinds of blackness. There are myriad ways to be black, and I know that, and I think I knew that as growing up, but it's not always. It's not always on the surface. It's not always the narrative that we get told. It's just like there's a myriad of ways to be an American. There's a myriad of ways to be a queer person. There's a myriad of ways to be a Christian. All the different ways that I identify, there are many, many ways. But sometimes the predominant narrative is seems to be wide, but is actually pretty strict. And there's a lot of gatekeeping. And I don't like gates. I'm going to talk to you. This is from an essay called Disorientation. And this is about two of the deans in the student affairs office at Columbia, where I went to school for a couple of years. The office had two deans with whom I was obsessed, a man named Ron and a woman named Kenya. I had only had a handful of Black teachers or administrators in my life, and I remember them all with a truly terrifying level of detail. I would encounter a Black person in a position of intellectual or cultural authority, and I would perform a full body scan like I was a 3D printer or a TSA agent, all the while gawking, slack-jawed. I wanted to memorize these people. Kenya moved through the world with a level of authority and command that laid me all the way out. She would stride into the office, give me a pleasant greeting, and then move on to whatever was pressing, and I would actually get lightheaded like a teenager seeing the Beatles. Kenya was also the first person I ever encountered who carried hot sauce in her purse. See, I told you there was a connection. Kenya was full-time Black. Once, she was headed off to some fancy dinner at Columbia with, I don't know, Yo-Yo Ma and Maya Angelou, and she stopped in the doorway of her office to ensure that her little bottle of Frank's was in her bag. I literally said aloud, that is the blackest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I was awed. Kenya was somebody who wouldn't even think of allowing hateration in the dancery. She was erudite and kind and intelligent and clearly making paper, and also Black as hell, and I was shook. Ron's presence was an equally stunning force on my life, though he worked with students more closely and had a more casual relationship with us. Kenya was like Mount Rushmore, and Ron was like a park ranger who leads guided tours. He had a level of accessibility and a beguiling version of masculinity that was completely foreign to me. Little details about him, his sense of humor, his aesthetic, his excellent ability to roll his eyes, his very moisturized skin, glimmered and glinted like light on sequins. Ron felt so safe. The importance and the rarity of that in a time when I felt constantly at risk in my racial understanding of myself and in my acceptance of my sexual orientation can't be overstated. I was obsessed with the two of them, with their takes on Blackness. One of the things that I really endeavored to do with this book was to complicate things that can seem pretty simple or binary, and to as many places as possible, introduce the intersection of identity, as opposed to sort of this is an essay about Blackness and this is an essay about queerness. I feel like, and I write a lot in the book, that like my understanding of Blackness is sort of inextricable from my understanding of masculinity, and it's inextricable from my understanding of my faith. I went to a small black church growing up, and so like when I met and started dating a white Presbyterian minister, I was like, okay, we both are Christian, but I don't know what's happening inside your church. Like white church was so different to me. It ended after like 45 minutes. And I was like, oh no. Like I went to the kind of church that went from 11-ish until, and so like little things, time, and like the way we talk about God and the procedures and the smells and bells, all that kind of stuff was different. And so like all of our lives, I think, my life particularly, because it's mine and it's the only one I know on the inside out, it's about intersections. And it was really important to me to keep circling back to that idea, and also to like talk about our capabilities for those intersections. The places where our bubbles come together and the film sort of starts to meet each other. If you're thinking of like a soap bubble or whatever, the place where like the air crosses into a different space and the film like meets the surface of the other bubble, can create something new or a place for us to change and expand our understanding of ourselves, which is a long way of saying that I always carry hot sauce around with me. I don't know what to do with it, but it goes in my jacket pocket. I want to read, speaking of bubbles, I want to read a little bit from an essay called "There's Never Any Trouble Here in Bubble Land." And I mentioned this in an interview on the Town Crier, the newsletter of Town Hall, and I was really glad to be able to talk with them. I'm just going to read a little bit from the beginning. I really like this essay. It feels so weird to be like, I like this essay. I think I really put my foot in this one. But like, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, what am I going to do? Be like, this book's not so great, but you do feel free to click that teal button at the bottom. No, this book is great. You're going to love it. It's from There's Never Any Trouble Here in Bubble Land. When I was a kid, maybe 6, Maryland Public Television, MPT, took Lassie rebroadcasts off the air. My younger brother, Stephen, and I were incensed. Our youngest brother, Jeffrey, wasn't born yet, but I'm sure he was furious in utero. The Saturday morning following, Stephen and I came marching downstairs and went right to the set of desks our parents had set up for us in the living room. My mom asked what we were doing. Stephen told my mother, in no uncertain terms, that he had decided I was going to write a letter to MPT and make them turn Lassie back on. Stephen was the spokesman, an idea man, even at 3, so I deferred to him. We fumed about Lassie's removal. We were shaking with anger. It was outrageous. I excused myself and went to go scream in another room for a moment. Who did these people think they were? I was determined to let them have it. We were unaware that we were watching a television show that had gone off the air 30 years before our births. But even if we had known that, it wouldn't have mattered. Are we serious about getting Timmy out of the well or not, damn it? Even from an early age, my parents imbued in us the knowledge that even though life wasn't just, we could always do something about it. We lived, the soon-to-be 5 of us, in a big house in the middle of a broken-down neighborhood in West Baltimore, lassoed by redlining and crippled by the drug trade. My parents pleased to elected officials and city agencies about everything from broken streetlights to increased police presence near open-air drug markets were constant. Sometimes they got a response, sometimes they didn't. But they were relentless because they were trying to create the world that they wanted their children to live in. At 6, I saw the discontinuation of Lassie as a perhaps less urgent injustice, but an injustice nonetheless. I assumed my parents' mantle and set about to make the world I wanted, a world containing a highly communicative collie with an impressive sense of urgency. At Stephen's prompting, I wrote a strongly worded letter to MPT on that beige paper with the big blue lines that they give you in 1st grade. My mother mailed it, and we waited. I remember going to the television the next day, turning it on, and being thunderstruck that they were still playing whatever trash they replaced Lassie with. "Haven't you received my letter?" I bellowed as I threw a plastic plate filled with plastic food against the wall of our playhouse. "What is this world coming to?" Eventually, MPT sent us a couple tchotchkes for our trouble, among them a mug with Disney characters on it. I unwrapped it and poured myself a juice, shaking with indignation. If this was a parable, I guess the lesson would be that life isn't fair, but if you complain, sometimes you get free things. Useful. This essay, this essay is about so many different things, but it's about justice. And it's about the possibility that we can see justice in the world, which is an open question, I think. I think everyone's lived experience. And I'm not even talking about the present. I think you go back through your life, you think to yourself, like, well, like it's debatable about whether true justice is possible. We get moments of justice, absolutely. But we also get moments of deep injustice. And so I wanted to talk about a moment of just sort of random, not even injustice, just a moment of a moment of ugly othering that I experienced early in life that sort of exposed me to this other side of life. But I wanted to nestle it deep, deep, deep inside the story of my parents trying to create a justice bubble for me in the home. The idea that we could be taught inside of our own home that we belonged, that we were fully capable of being citizens in this world, and that we had the right to anything anybody else had, was not something that you were learning in the neighborhood where I grew up. If you've ever seen The Wire, you've seen my parents' neighborhood. The street where Omar's grandmother lives, they used to film The Wire. And so, like, if you know that show, you know that things weren't going well for people in that neighborhood. And my parents tried to create a little oasis, a little bubble. And in so doing, they taught me that justice is possible and that it isn't guaranteed, and that you have to make your voice known, and make your concerns known, and whether that's to a public television station or to your representative, you had the right to speak up. And when you speak up, sometimes that results in justice being served, and sometimes it means you get some swag, and they don't turn Lassie back on. And this is one of the things I'm really glad that I'm able to do this reading here from my home, because I get to show you this this thing that I wasn't going to take onto book tour because I wouldn't want it to get broken. I still have this mug that Maryland Public Television sent me when I was six years old. So this is a 32-year-old mug that was sent to me because I wrote a letter asking them to turn Lassie back on, and I drank out of it. I cannot believe this has followed me on like 8 moves to college and in different places throughout my life. And so now when I drink out of it, it tastes like justice. No, that's just water, but mostly it tastes like justice. I'm going to read one more brief thing, and then I will. We've got 5 questions. I love, and please feel free to throw questions in there, whether you read the book or not. I'd love to have a conversation. And by a conversation, I mean read what you wrote and then continue talking. But I also love this, like the sort of like the upvoting. It sort of like becomes like a little Lord of the Flies in there. So that's very exciting. I'm going to read. I'm going to read something. This is the 3-year anniversary of this this event happening. 3 years ago on today, my husband, who's a Presbyterian pastor, was this is before he had his own church. He was like an intern pastor at this a big church in Philadelphia, and he was in charge of the Easter egg hunt. He had stuffed all these plastic eggs, and he had this whole system. And I think I tell you about the system here. But anyway, the system was there was going to be like 2 tiers of the hunt, and every child was going to get an equal number of eggs, and they're going to be assigned a color. And he left the eggs at the church the night before, and then somebody came in and just like threw them all over the yard, like thinking they were helping. And so it was this sort of tragedy. And I was like, it's just eggs, calm down. And that's where we begin. This essay is called equity. Equity. Another word I can't say. Equity, but with egg. It begins with him speaking. You're right, he conceded. It'll be fine. Some kids will get more eggs than others, and that sucks, but it'll be okay. Having successfully talked him down, I was now ready to re-escalate the crisis. There was a metaphor at stake. Not on my watch, I declared, still unhelpful, but determined. You go take care of the kids. I'll sort out this egg imbroglio. The organ in the church began playing in the distance. I had exactly 45 minutes to bring justice into the world on Easter Sunday. White church is very prompt. I surveyed the ruin of the parlor, the empty plastic bags, the basket of surplus eggs, and the pile of mini chocolate candies. I unwrapped a crackle and ate it as I tried to figure out how to go about righting this wrong, and also what a crackle is and why there are no full-size versions of it. This is an entire candy brand that exclusively exists in miniature. What is the business plan here? Deal with this later, I scolded myself. We have a holiday to save. We never had Easter egg hunts in church growing up. We were Baptists, and that bunny didn't die on the cross, did it? No, it did not. Our Easter baskets had chocolate crosses nestled in fake grass. I haven't done the math, but I think from a square inches perspective, you get more chocolate from a cross than a bunny. So chalk one up for crucifixion, I guess. To be fair, I recall my mother hiding Easter eggs around our house when we were little, but there were just 3 of us during the searching, and so there wasn't a complex system of organization. David had plotted a hunt that happened in 2 shifts. There was a set change involved. The eccentric in me delighted. The logistician despaired. Ooh, it's like 11 o'clock at night here. Moving on. I walked out to the yard to take stock of what had already been hidden. These eggs were just sitting everywhere in plain sight. This was a shock as well. Apparently, you didn't actually want to hide the eggs. You just put them where kids will find them and pick them up, so that the process isn't unnecessarily impeded. My mind was blown. The first step, as I saw it, was to take an inventory. I rummaged through the parlor until I found an actual clipboard. Years as a bar manager taught me that it was a fool's errand to try and do this kind of work without one. Clipboard, essential. There was probably a clipboard at the tomb when Jesus rose, to be honest. He emerged, filled out some forms, and went about his day. Literally, his day, because it was a Sunday. I love this idea. I just love this idea of Jesus having to fill out paperwork before fully resurrecting, just sort of meeting the 2 women at the angel. My husband's the pastor. Anyway, he walks out and there's like when you leave a doctor's office and they're like, oh, excuse me, your copay. And Jesus is like, oh, sorry, my copay. My goodness. All right, well, I left my wallet, on Calvary. And so can you bill me? I went outside to count the eggs that were out there so I could figure out how to adjust the inventory to achieve equity. Just a man in a suit standing in the dirt, counting Easter eggs by color like a middle management toddler. David had bought a lot of different colors so that he could ensure every child got one. I realized I needed to list each color as I came across it and tally them. I may have spent far too long ruminating on what exactly each shade was, but honestly, if you're not going to be thorough about this sort of thing, it displeases the Lord. It goes on from there. The moral of the story is I save Easter. That's the point of this book, is that I saved Easter in 2017. I came up on Facebook Memories today, the photo of my little clipboard with all the colors listed and the tally marks and the little eggs strewn everywhere came up. And I was like, it's nice to be reminded of these things that started off as just an experience that I sort of walked through as a person. And then I turned into an essay. And then I read in book readings every once in a while. But also still it sort of exists as a thing that we did, I don't know. I can't imagine that any child would have gone to that Easter egg hunt and come away, emotionally scarred. I feel like I got less of the pie, but I also felt it was deeply important to me And maybe it's a Pyrrhic victory, but it was a victory nonetheless to create an even playing field where there is enough for everybody, because that is, God, that's the promise of the country, you know. That's the promise of church. You know, David, every time he does communion, he tells you to pull some bread off of the loaf, take as much as you can grab, and then take a little bit more, because that is symbolic of God's grace, and there's more than enough. So it all mixes together, you know, the politics and the religion. And you know, I feel like this idea of like scarcity also sort of, or a lack of, the opposite of scarcity, abundance, you know, is something that when communities of marginalized people, whether there is the queer communities or communities of color or whomever, when we gather together and we create our own spaces, we're able, artist communities do the same thing. Town Hall is a space where this happens. We create abundance for ourselves, for each other. And there's always enough. There's always enough, which is important to remember, I think, in this moment where it feels like there's so much, you know, there's actual financial scarcity. There's actual, you know, food scarcity. There are things that there is not enough, but I don't know. I don't want to get into guru land where I'm start like, you know, spouting off like aphorisms, and you're like, this was fine, but then he jumped out the window with all his you know, think yourself rich talk. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like we can create a just world for each other and for ourselves. Anyway, I'm going to take a couple questions. Oh God, there's 13. There's so many. I hope you've been fighting in the voting. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. I will read this. This is very nice. So this person writes, oh, right. Sorry, I forgot. In rehearsal, I was told that I need to identify which question I'm referring to. So I'm referring to Victoria's question. Okay, this is up top. Victoria's question. Sent chocolate croissants and a tiara backstage. Thank you, Victoria. Victoria, one of my favorite Seattleites. I'm so sorry I can't see you, Victoria. With the last time I was at Town Hall, she sent chocolate croissants and a tiara backstage. So that is a note for everyone else. That's how that is a great way to greet me, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, I am actually thinking. I've been thinking a long time about another book of essays about making community, because I moved down to Baltimore with my husband. He started a church. We didn't start a church. He started as the pastor of a church, and I started working from home. And I spent 2 years deeply, deeply lonely. And I wondered, in my hometown. And so I think a lot about community. And I think that if I am going to, I think I will write this book. And I think the first half will be the first couple years of like experiments and trying to make community. And then I think the second half will sort of needs to be the ironic moment of like the moment that I start to feel like a part of the world. I have to like go inside. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know that there's a particular COVID-19 essay, you know. I have to sort of see how my life goes. But I think there's little moments. I've been doing a lot of writing on Elle. I highly recommend, actually, if you're interested in this, I highly recommend it. I've been doing a lot of revisiting old movies, like new classics, you know, like rom-com, Sleepers in Seattle, like Death Becomes Her, you know, all kinds of different movies from the 80s, 90s, and a little bit in the early 2000s, with the lens of our present moment, our anxiety, our existential anxiety, and our isolation. And a lot of these movies have something to say to that, you know. I wrote earlier this week about the movie Death Becomes Her and the beauty of petty grievances, and how like sometimes these urgent moments rob us of like the best parts of life, which are that like it's just nice to be annoyed that like by your coworkers drumming like their fingers, you know. Or I wrote about Hello Dolly, and how that's a movie, I think, that's about one woman who really misses her favorite restaurant. And I'm like, I can deeply relate to that. So those are a couple initial thoughts. That book won't be out for 70 years, but I'll start writing it eventually. But I don't know. You don't want to get out in front of something and then be like, oh, I didn't know what I was right. I didn't know what it was at all. Anyway, thank you, Victoria. So good seeing you. All right, this one. Okay, I'm answering one from Jordan. It's top. It's got 8 votes. What is a piece of pop culture that you think is overrated? Oh no, it's not get me canceled. And what is one that you think is underrated? Oh man, what do I think is underrated? I don't know. I have a lot of niche interests. I also I have a lot of gay interests, and so like a lot in my circles, I'm like Clue is underrated, and everyone I know is like, I love Clue. Clue is the best movie in the entire world. I'm like, all right, yes, but like the general public is not acknowledging Clue's preeminence. So I think that's underrated. I think that the performances. This is a weird thing. Big Bang Theory was like the most popular show on television. I think the performances on Big Bang Theory are underrated. They are giving classic comedy performances, like in a vaudeville style. That I think it takes real skill. I don't think the Big Bang Theory, I didn't particularly like it that much, but I think those actors were phenomenal. Overrated, I don't know. I'm looking around my apartment to see if like there's something that I can find, but if it's overrated, I don't think it's here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'll come back to it. I'm sure there's something, but I can't think of anything right now that I think is overrated. Everything is great. Everything is great. All right, let me scroll down. This is from Jody. 5 votes. It's at the top there. What's the next category of movie for your rewatch series? Oh, that's good. Oh, thank you. Leads into things. I watched Talented Mr. Ripley last night because of you, and boy, I did not remember a lot of that plot since I first saw it 20 years ago. Yeah, no, the Talented Mr. Ripley will sneak up on you. I did a rewatch tweet along with Rachel Syme, who writes for The New Yorker, and Alexander Chi, and I was like, well, this is great. I know exactly what my role here is, which is gay nonsense. I mean, Alexander Chi is also a queer writer, but he's very smart and, literary. And I was like, look at Jude Law's butt. So this week I'm doing movies that have a sort of comedic take on mortality. Because I was like, look, it's in the air. We're thinking about mortality. We have to. How do we use movies to process this? And I can't just write about terms of endearment every day. So I have to go. I went it a different way. So I wrote about Death Becomes Her, and I wrote about I don't remember what I wrote about yesterday, but it was another. Oh, Beetlejuice. And tomorrow I've got 2 pieces coming out. One on the movie Heart and Souls, which as I think that's underrated as well. I think it's really good. And on Defending Your Life. And then I think next week it might be we're still deciding, but it's either I'm either going to write about movies in which time exists in a sort of weird way. So Groundhog Day, Truman Show, Edge of Tomorrow. Sort of living the same day over and over again. Or next week is also an anniversary for 13 going on 30, although that fits too. So I might just throw that in there too. So we'll see. All right, this is from Amy. 4 votes here. So this is not a question, but I just wanted to say to you that the chapter She's Got Herself a Universe is one of the most beautiful pieces of writing I've read. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Moving and lovely. You can see the tragedy coming, and yet the last line. I love this line. And in this place, she hugs me, and I whisper in her ear, and anything is possible for anyone forever. Just perfection. Thank you. Really briefly, thank you, Amy, so much for that really beautiful comment. So if you haven't read the book, She's Got Herself a Universe is one of the only essays that is not, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to move this window. Okay, I'll figure it out. That is not humorous. And it's a love story. And it's a platonic rom-com, or a platonic love story that ends in tragedy. And it was originally part of the pitch for the book, but then I chickened out, and I was like, people know me from writing jokes online. They're not going to want to read about this time that I sort of fell in love, and I realized that love is not a respecter of gender, time and space, and then I lost that person. But as we got further along in our process, my editor was like, "There's a space missing in your life. You know, like there was nothing about high school in the book. Like, what happened?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I went from 5th grade to college. I'm Doogie Howser. I'm a baby genius." I was really nervous that people weren't going to accept this essay, but I really, really love this essay, and I tried for years to write this. I started writing the essay as a one-person show, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. But for years, I've had that line in my head. Anything is possible for anyone, forever. And it just had to come out. And I feel like that's what love is, you know, it's possibility. And it's promise, and it's a million different universes. All right, I'm gonna pull my emotions back together. And oh yeah, this is from Jennifer. Can you talk about writing Maxine Waters' biography? That is the most perfect pairing of author and subject ever, and I need to know more. Yeah, absolutely. I am in September from Day Street Books. There is it's a book called Reclaiming Her Time, and it is I co-wrote it with Helena Andrews Dyer, who writes for the Washington Post. And it's sort of in the style, if you know the book Notorious RBG, it's in that style. So it's like sort of a big, beautifully illustrated, like gift of a book. And so Representative Waters and I are friendly. I've interviewed her a number of times. She interviewed me once, which was fascinating and terrifying. So unfortunately, like, you know, this is not like an official biography. That would take years and years and years to put together. And we all agreed that we didn't, you know, this was not the right moment in her career, you know, as she was I was writing this as like leading up to the impeachment hearings. And of course, right now is not the time, but there's so much interest out there for her. And so one of the challenges for me is because I write in such a hyperbolic way on my column, one of the challenges was figuring out a register that was a little bit closer to earth, because we wanted to write a book that was fun and that felt true to her spirit, but also we wanted to, recognize the incredible accomplishments that she has throughout her 40 plus year career. So it was, I was like, I can't, if I'm going to write about the LA uprising, I'm probably not gonna be cracking jokes. So, and I didn't, you know, and so, but we had a really quick turnaround because of the demands of the publisher. And so I had, how long did it take to write this book? I think maybe I had 5 months, maybe 6 months. So I put myself into Maxine Waters boot camp, and you know, I learned as much as I could, and talked to as many people as I could, and I came away so inspired. You know, you look at somebody like Maxine Waters, you look at her life, you look at the way that she has manifested justice in the world, and the way that her messaging has stayed consistent, and the way that she talks. You know, when I first encountered her, I was like, who is this person? She just says whatever's on her mind. And that's powerful. Oh my gosh. And to be able to walk into the LA assembly in the late 70s, when she first got elected as an assemblywoman, she was elected as an assemblyman. And one of the first measures she put through in the assembly was to change the term to introduce the assemblywoman or assembly person. And they were like, what? Why? And she's like, hello. And I love that. And I love that she has so successfully created space for herself. We've got about 5 more minutes. I don't want to hold anybody. I know you all got to get home. But I'm going to try and get through a couple more questions. I don't want to get too caught up in my own nonsense. This person writes, Caroline writes, books are magic. I love that. This is from a bookstore, Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, where I did the launch of the book. It's run by Emma Straub, who has a new book coming out called All Are Adults. all adults here. Sorry, Emma, but I highly recommend it, and I recommend you support independent bookstores, including your wonderful local bookstores, which I believe the link connects you to. So I have a Christian friend who considers people who are gay sinners, but she accepts them. Ooh. I don't have religion in my life, so calling someone a sinner but acceptable doesn't seem to make sense. Is there something here as a non-religious person that I'm not getting here? Or is the dissonance in words and meaning real? Yeah, no, it's absolutely real. The dissonance, that is one of the most confounding paradoxes, I think, of some forms of modern Christianity, particularly sects of Christianity that are presenting themselves as liberal. I've had so many people tell me, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but God loves you anyway. And I was like, well, yeah, obviously God loves me. I don't need you to tell me that, and I actually don't need any opinions. When people say that they don't agree with or they think that what you're doing is sin, but you accept it, that gives them the power to say whether you are a full person or not. And the fact of the matter is, I was born a full person, and I'm going to die a full person. And all of us, every single one of us also has that, that's true for every single one of us as well. So other people telling us that they accept us for parts of our identity is them asserting a power that they don't have the right to exert. So in the court of Eric Thomas, I say overruled. I think that person means well. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they don't. But, a lot of people who say this really do mean well. And they're being advised by people who sometimes are more interested in power than in true revolutionary change. And I think that's one of the things about religion in general, is that religion in its best iteration is revolutionary, because it's about love. And love is revolutionary. Anything else? Acceptance? Honey, I don't know. I don't accept that. I don't accept anything. You want to serve me a process at my house? Don't accept it. No, thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, good. We got a couple more. Donna writes, thank you so much for laughs. Thanks. Just what we needed tonight. You're a delight. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. You're a delight. Kylie writes, thank you so much for being an absolute delight. Oh, delights everywhere. Thank you. How are you dealing with this profoundly weird, scary / unjust time? Oh, Kylie, that's a great question. I'm I'm like deeply depressed, but like I'm also I'm addicted to hope. And so the times that uncertainty overpowers hope, I sort of just I'm really grateful that I can buckle down and dig in to the reality that's around me. So if I don't have the power to hope, I do have the power to turn on FaceTime, or to honestly to do something like this. This is a real treat. And it feels so weird. And I'm like, if if this was all pretend, and there was nobody out there, like I have to believe that's the thing. There's a metaphor in there. I know it's not pretend. I know that you're out there, and I can't see it. And it looks, my neighbors across the way looking at me. They're like, I hope he's talking to somebody. I hope I am too. And that's the thing that's getting me through this profoundly weird and scary and unjust time, is that we are isolated in this strange thing, and there's an invisible thing that's threatening us, and there are visible things that are threatening us. But I'm not just sort of talking to myself. I'm not just yelling at the wall. I know that we are all out there, and that we're going to reach each other. And I think am looking at the time, and I think that is all I've got time for. And I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to get to everybody else. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for supporting Town Hall Seattle. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Town Hall Seattle and everybody on staff there. You all have made this really, really wonderful. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over. Maybe. Yeah, I will.
There I am. Eric, thank you so much for your generous heart and for sharing with us your addiction to hope. I think it's something that we can all use a lot of right now. Also, I'm going to think a lot about being subject to the court of Eric Thomas. I'm going to really muse upon a whole new threshold of justice for this world. And I want to urge all of you in our audience tonight, I want to thank you first and foremost, and then urge you all in these last dying strains of our time together to press that green button at the bottom of your screen and buy the book, because there's plenty more essays and plenty more warm, generous humor and keen observation where this came from in Here For It, his beautiful new book. I want to thank Josh, Candace, and Ginny from the Town Hall team for making tonight possible. And was that all? I think those are the only thanks I need to extend. I'll just once again thank you for being a big part of Town Hall and of this evening. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.